Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
You are a data centre and therefore you're bad is the frustrating bias which companies like Equinix face here in Ireland. However, the managing director of Equinix Ireland, Peter Lantry, believes that this not only demonstrates a lack of understanding about the company and what it does, but it also hampers the Irish economy. Peter joins us now to outline how proactive data centre development can benefit Ireland. Peter, before we discuss Equinix, take us on a whistle-stop tour of your own career.
Good morning, Karl. Good to talk to you. So I'm a civil engineer background, actually, and I worked in construction for a couple of years at the beginning of my career back many years and many decades ago now, after doing a degree with UCD. But yeah, I worked for a couple of years in that, and then I did a master's in what's called management science in UCD. And that brought me into the world of digital and technology. I never really looked back since. I've been involved with a number of companies in the energy space. So I worked with EirGrid, which is the utility operator for large volumes of electricity in Ireland, so the motorways of electricity in Ireland, and they make sure everybody gets connected at that level, working with ASP networks. And then I also worked with Hitachi Energy, used to be called ABB, and that's a company which supplies power solutions to any company that wants to connect and use electricity around the world. So that's a company where I learned all about digital infrastructure, because they asked me if I wouldn't mind taking on the global data center role for them, as well as looking after the MD role in Ireland. So I quickly learned about that, and then Equinix thankfully gave me a knock on the shoulder and said, would you like to come in and look after our Irish business? And that happened back at the 2 years ago now. I joined in February 2023 with Equinix.
So what services does Equinix provide?
Yeah, so Equinix is one of the key parts of everything to do with digital infrastructure in the world. We're the world's leading digital infrastructure company, actually. And we connect everything together. So if you can think of us a little bit like a digital airport. So what we do is we would bring data from any company or any person's mobile phone, anything that you're doing online. And that data then will be transferred through our data center. So we're kind of like a sophisticated telephone exchange, if you like. And that then will go to whichever companies or apps or solutions are needed to provide you with services that you need, or any type of digital activity you're doing, really. And then that then will come back to you, and and so forth. So it's really about the connection of one company to another to allow data flow. So that's why I think of it like a digital airport. It's how everybody gets connected together. We've more than 500,000 connections between different companies around the world. So very, very effective. I think more than 90% of all the internet traffic goes through an Equinix data center.
How many data centres does Equinix operate in Ireland today, and what would you estimate the investment in these data centres to be?
Yeah, so data centers and digital infrastructure in general is a huge opportunity for this country. So we have in Equinix had data centers in Ireland since 1998. So we started with two of them in the Dublin area in 1998, and so we're 25 years here now, under different names actually. Equinix bought a company called Telecity in 2016, but it was the same physical infrastructure that was there. And that's been, brought into the global Equinix footprint now. And what we have is four now, what we call retail international business exchanges in the Dublin Metro, two in Blanchardstown area and two in the City West and Profile Park area. And what they are is they represent the most highly interconnected points on the Irish digital grid, let's call it that. And we have 65 different carriers of communication and data connecting into us on those sites that are from 1998. And we've been able to offer customers access to the clouds, service providers. We can provide them access to all the content service providers as well, all the network service providers. So all the companies love that because they get easy access to anything they want, really, through us. And we also have two other sites, both of them in Blanchardstown, much next to each other, which are a little bit bigger footprint, which are looking after a single cloud player. So the investment that we've had in Ireland, I mean, if you take it since Equinix bought Telecity in 2016. The investment that we put into Ireland already is north of $500 million, but we are looking to do an awful lot more, to be honest, and mainly looking to do it in the Dublin Metro, but also looking at solutions outside of Dublin, where there's less connectivity, but there's definitely an opportunity to use power that might be available, rather than doing more of that type of development in the Dublin city area, where there is definitely a constraint in the grid at the moment. That's a challenge for a lot of us.
Data centres are not renowned for being big employers, but is Equinix bucking the trend in this regard?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. We are a little bit different from other data centres that people would traditionally think about in Ireland. So Equinix is an international business exchange. So in 2023, we had 40,000 people going through the doors of our data centres to work during the year. And we have a team of 95 people who look after the 24/7 operation of those sites. And we have another group of 65 people that are working in the head office in City West. But really what we offer is a solution for all of our customers to come in and look after their own equipment. So traditionally, most people will remember this, every single company would have had an infrastructure architectural person looking after their digital infrastructure. And they'd be in their office and working on that. And probably many companies still do. And you remember these server rooms that would be either in the basement, or some people call them computer rooms, but essentially they'd have been in the basement or in some room, a lot of air conditioning. What Equinix does is allow those companies to remove those from that inefficient location and store them in a highly sustainable location within an Equinix data center. And they actually buy their own space. So customers would buy their own space. They install their own servers, and then they look after their own servers, so they ask us to help them. So they're actually all using our Equinix data center or international business exchange as their place of work.
And Peter, another criticism levelled at data centres here in Ireland is that they are very, very high energy users.
All data centers are essentially is a facility which helps to operate servers and cool them and make sure they're optimized all the time. So there's going to be a lot of power used for them. Now the question is, how efficient is that power being used? So for Equinix, if I talk about Equinix, we have 260 customers in Ireland out of 10,000 globally. And our customers in Ireland are using our facility to run their equipment. And the beauty of it is that those same customers said to us, if they had to do this in their own offices, they'd have to use 3 times the amount of power. Now, it'd be dispersed around the place because people have different offices in different places, but they would still use 3 times the amount of power, electricity, to run it and to cool it. So we are able to operate at a very, very high level of efficiency. The next question is, okay, but you're still using power, and a new data center, if you're trying to build one, is going to use more power again. Absolutely, but don't ask the data center to stop using power. Look instead at the data itself and the workload itself, because the amount of data being created and the workloads and transfer of data from an interconnectivity point of view every year is growing by 41% per year. Now, if that amount of increase in digital is happening every year, there has to be a place where they can be sustainably managed and operated. So we offer that. And the beauty of what Equinix is doing now is we are fully covered by renewable power, but we're going one step further. So when we look at renewables in Ireland and the renewable energy, we're looking to try and add in new additional renewable power onto the energy grid. Now, we know that the wind and the sun isn't shining all the time, but what we're doing is investing in sustainable future projects that allow them to be built, and we will pay for the power coming from them for a period of 10, 15 years. And that will then guarantee that more renewable power is being put into the actual grid and used then by us. So we're doing a lot of things in that space from an innovation point of view to help bring in more. And we're also looking at long-term storage solutions. So when you look at Ireland's power use, we're actually dumping more than 20% of all the renewable power we create in this country. And that's published on the EirGrid website where I used to work. And that power is wasted, but should be stored and used. And so there's lots of innovation around that right now, trying to do that in Ireland, because we want to quadruple the amount of renewables we get into the island by 2030. So if we do that, we want to avoid a situation where we're dumping it. So I'm trying to talk about demand being good. Demand for power is a good thing, so long as that demand for power is done in a flexible way. So what we're doing in Equinix now is we're offering back to the grid the ability to have flexible power. And if that's the case, then we can reduce our use of the grid when the grid needs us to, and increase our use on the grid when the grid wants us to.
And talk to us about how data centres are playing a role in supporting economic development.
It's huge in that way. If you think about data centres and what they're doing, everything relies on them these days. You wake up in the morning, you might look at your phone. As soon as you look at your phone, you're dealing with a data centre. You're interacting with a data centre straight away. If you turn on your TV in the morning to listen to the news, or you pick one of the apps on the smart TV, every single one of those is going through a data center, and everything is connected together through an Equinix data center, most likely. So all of those things are needed for it. You have simple things like, yesterday I paid a membership for my son for a sports club, for a GAA, and I paid that on an app, and the app said, "Oh, we need to verify with your bank." So it immediately gave me access to that, and I opened up the bank message and I confirmed all on my phone, and then I went back and I said, "Yeah, all done," and it said, "Well done, here's your confirmation of payment." That all happens through data center interconnectivity. These things are all connected through networks, which are all connected into us. So the importance of that is critical. Hospitals, emergency services, universities, airports, governments, banking, retailers, everybody use it. Any online retail you do at all, even if you're buying something on Amazon, most likely the communication or associated that is coming through an Equinix data center.
And how would you describe Ireland's approach to the development of new data centres?
So Ireland has had a really important recognition that the speed at which power requirements have been ramping up for the larger footprint data centres is too much for the Dublin Metro to take, right? So there was a recognition of this in 2019. And EirGrid, my own company, wrote to the regulator for energy and said, "Hey, look, we need to do something about this." And the regulator responded by saying, "Let's take a hold, let's put a pause on data centers for a period of time until we can understand it and come up with a solution and a plan to allow for appropriate use of data centers or appropriate facilitation of the power for data centers in Ireland." And that's been ongoing up until now. And one of the things that Ireland hasn't done very well and needs to do a bit better is recognize the difference between different types of facilities. So a co-location retail data center or an international business exchange like Equinix, we don't use that much power. You might be using 10, 15 megawatts of power. And that's actually quite small. That would be what we call distribution connected. So connected to the ESB network's lower level of power requirement. And those solutions are hugely beneficial, but also need to be in the Dublin Metro, where everything is meshed together, everything is connected there. And that benefits everybody on the island if we can do that. But the larger footprint solutions, they don't have to necessarily be as close anymore to the Dublin Metro. So one thing EirGrid has been doing, and the regulator and the government is saying, are there some renewable energy hubs where these data centers can be located as well as being in their existing footprints in the Dublin Metro? And that'll allow them to manage data volumes in each location and different types of workloads. So the Irish state and the regulator for energy and the utilities are all trying to figure this out, and we're trying to help them understand what's possible. So I think Ireland is trying to do the right thing, way too slow, I would say, at getting it done, but we're trying to get there. The other thing, of course, Ireland needs to do a lot better is build grid faster. So we should be building the digital solutions, but we should also be building the infrastructure from a grid point of view. Overhead lines, substations, offshore wind farms, onshore wind farms, solar, storage facilities, battery arrays, all of those things are needed. And we'll all work together to optimize the use of the grid. But now the realization is digital infrastructure and the electricity grids are completely intertwined, completely interdependent, in fact, because some of these solutions that are going to optimize the grid are actually going to be digital ones that are being run through data centers in the future.
And how much of a challenge is our current planning framework causing for companies like yourselves?
Yeah, I mean, the current planning framework is slow, but it's following the rule sets that are given to them from the point of view of government policy. So I can't really fault the planning framework other than the speed at which it operates. I think the changes that are coming in to try and optimize it will be helpful. And we just need to make sure that they're bedded in quickly. Once that happens, I think the planning system will be a better functioning service to the Irish economy and to the Irish people. And I think there's a lot of work to be done to get there, but I think the right policy frameworks need to be in place to enable them to do their job properly too.
And do you think that the current policy is actually hampering Ireland from attracting foreign direct investment in, especially tech companies? And also the other side of that question is there a risk that if we don't address this problem soon, that we could potentially lose some of the foreign direct investment that we already have here?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a high risk for Ireland. And I know this from conversations I've had with all of the different companies involved that we'd be worried about losing. The eyeballs, the information, and the discussions internally, and most of the digital infrastructure businesses, the global ones, are now looking elsewhere outside of Ireland. And it's a fact that if you look at Warsaw in Poland, for example, we have seen the growth of hyperscale data centers there, drive up quite quickly. Spain is going very, very well. Same in Italy, and we're seeing quite a lot of activity, as you would expect, in Germany and the UK. The UK now has recognised data centres as critical national infrastructure, which is something Ireland should do as quickly as possible. We're going to lose business. We have been losing business here in this country, and I've had to ask customers to go to other parts of the European region where they can access an Equinix data center, but just not in Ireland, because of space and power limitations, because of the delay and the lack of ability to build. So that's something we do need to fix here as urgently as possible.
And in your estimation, how many new data centers do we need to build in Ireland over the next 5 years?
If you look at it globally, Karl, there's a need for probably a tripling of the digital infrastructure footprint across the whole world by 2030. From a demand for digital services point of view, and from the point of view of what we see as the customer requirements. And this is across every single industry there is in the world, by the way. There's a need for more capacity and space. Even to decarbonize the grid, funny enough, there's a need for more. So I think if Ireland is able to figure out a solution to sustainable data center builds, which allow for flexible capacity on the Irish grid as well, and working in tandem with the utilities, I think you could have a huge growth again of digital infrastructure on the island of Ireland, but that would be hugely beneficial to the Irish people as well. But keep in mind, we also have the same target growth ambitions for renewable energy integration onto the Irish grid. So the worst thing that could happen is you do all the renewables integration and you've no one to use it. You can't export all of it across interconnectors, and it's actually wasteful to do so. So much better to have digital solutions in place and export the digital expertise and digital solutions, and you get a 10x increase in the value there to the Irish economy as well.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Peter Lantry, the Managing Director of Equinix Ireland, and I'd like to thank Peter for sharing his thoughts on data centre development with us this morning.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.